Afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Vaughn. There is breaking news. Jurors have just reached a verdict in the trial of Owen Labrie. Labrie is accused of sexually assaulting a freshman student at St. Paul's Prep School in Concord of last year. At that time, which was May of 2014, he was an 18-year-old senior. The alleged victim was 15 years old. You're looking live now inside the Merrimack County Superior Courthouse. This is in Concord. The jury has spent about 8 hours deliberating this case over the course of 2 days. The verdict is imminent. Let's listen in for a moment.
Madam Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, we have.
How say you, Madam Foreperson? How do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on indictment number 973494C, accusing the defendant of prohibited uses of computer equipment in that he knowingly utilized a computer online service and/or internet service to seduce, lure, or entice a female child under the age of 16, DOB October 24th, an offense of sexual assault and/or related offenses by utilizing St. Paul's School email and/or Facebook. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant, Owen Labrie, is guilty?
Yes.
So say you, all members of the jury?
Yes.
How say you, Madam Foreperson? How do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on indictment number 9734C, accusing the defendant
Privacy of this alleged victim here and the nature of these charges, we will not be broadcasting that audio as you hear it, but we are listening to the verdict in the count of aggravated felonious sexual assault. Let's listen in again.
That the defendant, Owen Labrie, is not guilty?
Yes.
So say you, all members of the jury?
Yes.
And how say you, Madam Foreperson? How do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on indictment number 973496C, accusing the defendant of aggravated felonious sexual...
And this count includes aggravated felonious sexual assault against a female juvenile. Again, we are dipping out of audio to protect the privacy and not to reveal any graphic nature of the charge here.
Performance of the sexual act, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant, Owen Labrie, is not guilty?
Yes.
So say you, all members of the jury?
Yes.
And how say you, Madam Foreperson? How do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on indictment number 973497C, accusing the defendant of aggravated felonious sexual assault by knowingly engaging in sexual...
So again, as we wait for this verdict, this is another count. This is the aggravated felonious sexual assault. This is a felony charge against the female juvenile.
Juvenile indicated by speech and/or conduct that she did not freely consent to the performance of the sexual act. Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant, Owen Labrie, is not guilty?
Yes.
So say you, all members of the jury?
Yes.
And how say you, Madam Foreperson? How do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on indictment number 973498C, accusing the defendant of sexual assault by...
So this is a Class A misdemeanor sexual assault charge on a female juvenile between the ages of 13 and 16.
By inserting his finger into her genital opening when he...
Again, we apologize for that. We're trying to dip in and out of the audio to avoid any graphic nature of the reading of these charges. Again, this is a Class A misdemeanor.
And how say you, Madam? How do you 973499C, accusing the defendant of sexual assault by knowingly engaging in sexual...
So again, this is another Class A misdemeanor, a charge of sexual assault on a female juvenile who was between the ages of 13 and 16. Again, a Class A misdemeanor.
Difference between the defendant and the female juvenile was 4 years or less. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty?
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant, Owen Labrie, is guilty?
Yes.
So say you all members of the jury?
Yes.
And how say you, Madam Foreperson, how do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on indictment number, or on information number 973500C, accusing the defendant of sexual assault by knowingly engaging...
So again, the reading of this charge, this is another Class A misdemeanor of sexual assault on a female juvenile who was between the ages of 13 and 16 years old at the time of the alleged crime.
When the age difference 4 years or less. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty?
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant, Owen Labrie, is guilty?
Yes.
So say you all members of the jury?
Yes.
And how say you, Madam Foreperson, how do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on information number 973501C, accusing the defendant of committing the crime of endangering the welfare of a child in that...
So again, this is the charge of endangering the welfare of a child. This is a Class A misdemeanor, charging Labrie with endangering the welfare of the female child under the age of 18 by inducing this said child to engage in a sexual conduct.
Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty?
You say, Madam Foreperson, that the defendant, Owen Labrie, is guilty?
Yes.
So say you all members of the jury?
Yes.
And how say you, Madam Foreperson, how do you find the defendant, Owen Labrie, on information number 973502C, accusing the defendant of simple assault in that he knowingly caused unprivileged physical contact to a female?
So this is a simple assault charge. It's a Class A misdemeanor against Labrie, charging that he caused unprivileged physical contact to the female juvenile by biting her chest.
You say that the defendant, Owen Labrie, is not guilty?
Yes.
So say you all members of the jury?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any requests? The jury is excused.
All right, please.
Obviously, an emotional defendant there, Owen Labrie, reacting to the verdict that the jury has just delivered on these 9 charges, 4 of which were felonies. On those felony charges, with the exception of the first one involving a computer used to lure or entice, he has been found not guilty, again, on those felony charges. The jury delivering guilty verdicts on 5 of those misdemeanor charges involving sex assault. So if we can review a bit, I'll take you back to the first one that he was found guilty on. This is a felony charge that Owen Labrie used a computer or an online service to seduce, solicit, to lure or entice a child under the age of 16. Okay, on to the second charge. This was a felony, the aggravated felonious sexual assault felony. He was found not guilty on this charge. On the next one, which was also a felony, an aggravated felonious sexual assault, also not guilty. Not guilty on another aggravated felonious sexual assault. He was found guilty, though, on a sexual assault charge. This is a Class A misdemeanor, though, so guilty on that one, as well as another charge of sex assault, which is the Class A misdemeanor, and guilty on yet another one involving a Class A misdemeanor charge of sex assault. Also found guilty here on another misdemeanor charge of endangering the welfare of a child. So guilty on that charge, and finally not guilty on a final charge of simple assault, which was also a Class A misdemeanor. So somewhat of a split verdict by this jury here. They took about 8 hours over 2 days to weigh the evidence in all of this. Most folks who've been watching this trial saying that this really came down to a case of he said versus she said about what happened that night on the campus of St. Paul's School, involving this underground tradition of a senior salute. Then the senior inviting an underclassman or freshman on a date. Initially, the charge was that they made contact to these first two as Owen Labrie offered this senior salute to this then 15-year-old victim. Lawyers saying that yes, there was consensual contact. No, this was not a case of rape. But the jury, obviously having heard from both the alleged victim in this case and the defendant, were left with really deciding whose story did they believe. The prosecution here saying that this 19-year-old high school graduate here targeted this victim, had been watching her for months. Again, this was all part of this senior salute tradition that is used by upperclassmen. They ask these younger students out on a date. It is a well-known phenomenon on this campus, apparently. The prosecutors had argued that Labrie took advantage of this girl, who was then 15 years old. When she tried to block his advances, he continued. The alleged victim taking the stand in tearful testimony, telling the jury that this assault happened to her in the attic of a school building. She is now 16 years old. She testified to these jurors that she repeatedly told him no. And then Labrie testified that there was not any sexual intercourse. In fact, that what had happened between him and this then 15-year-old girl was entirely consensual, and that the girl was a willing participant throughout the entire thing. His lawyer, J.W. Carney, even going as far as to say that this victim was lying. So again, as we look inside the courthouse now, after the verdicts have been read, again, not guilty on 4, but guilty on 5. We see the defendant there, Owen Labrie, obviously emotional. I don't know what's being said inside the courtroom right now. Perhaps we can listen in. Okay. Well. Okay, as we wait to hear more from inside the courtroom, not exactly sure what's going on right now, but you can see an obviously very emotional defendant, Owen Labrie. He's now 19 years old. He has just been found guilty of 5 of these charges, not guilty on 4. They are a mix of felony and misdemeanor charges, though the majority of the guilty charges are on the misdemeanor, with the exception of the first charge in all of this involving a computer, which is a Class B felony. He was found guilty on that one. So again, just to sort of give you a sense of what this case has been all about, it's really transfixed the nation for 2 weeks now as the entirety of this trial has played out. But in months before, after learning that these charges would be filed against this student, this graduate of an exclusive New Hampshire prep school. Let's listen in again.
And our request would be that the sentencing occur before October 1st, if possible.
I don't know that I can schedule something before October 1st if we're doing a PSI.
It's better than 60 days.
October 1st?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I stand corrected. I don't even know what date it is today. That is our request.
I think there is a good reason for a pre-sentence investigation report. And if I do that, that's 45 to 60 days. That's the nature of the process.
Does October 8th give
I'm not even sure that's enough time for a PSI. I think we're looking more in the second half of October range.
May I suggest
the end
another?
of August. We're looking probably around the 15th to the 30th of October, which we will give you a date and have to make sure the PSI is done by that date, if the parties want to agree on that date. But
At the court convenience, it can't be before the 1st of October.
I don't think that's the case.
May I suggest the 29th?
Do we have to? I'll have the clerk check. I'll ask counsel to stay, and we'll confirm the date before you leave. I'll bring you up on that date.
I'm trying to ensure I have no conflicts of any kind, so that the date once set will not have to be moved.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think all the parties will be able to depend on it. Is there going to be a request for the modification of bail pending sentencing?
There's not.
Let me adjourn before we do that, to thank the jury, and I want to see counsel briefly in chambers, and then we'll have a ballot.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, please.
Okay, obviously a little fuzzy with the audio there. I believe that they were talking about the next phase in all of this, the sentencing phase, and trying to clear calendars and get this scheduled and get that on the docket. You've been watching live coverage now of the verdict just handed down in the sexual assault trial of Owen Labrie. He has been acquitted on felony rape charges, though found guilty on 5 charges, including 1 felony involving the use of a computer to seduce, solicit, lure, or entice a child under the age of 16. This would involve the then 15-year-old victim in this trial. The charges that he has been found not guilty on were really those felony rape charges. And the misdemeanors, though they did involve Class A misdemeanor sexual assault charges. Again, he was acquitted of the felony rape charge in all of this, though found guilty on the felony computer use charge. So in all, 9 charges here, 5 guilty, 4 not guilty, and again acquitted on the felony rape charges. Obviously, this is a very emotional picture of this 19-year-old defendant that you're seeing here. We believe what was just transpiring inside Merrimack County Superior Court had to do with the next phase, the sentencing phase, and all of this. We do understand that both families of the victim in this case and Labrie's family are in court. They were summoned to court in advance of the reading of this verdict. We anticipate or hope that we will have some sort of reaction from one or both sides in all of this, perhaps hearing from the prosecutors and from J.W. Carney here, who has served as the lawyer for Owen Labrie. So again, the verdict is in the trial of Owen Labrie in all 9 charges. He has been found guilty on 5 of them, not guilty on 4. We will be on this case all afternoon for you. Our reporters are fanned out, and we'll be bringing the latest to you beginning first at 5 o'clock. We'll see you again this afternoon.